To the Romeo Planning Commission meeting for July 11th, 2024. We're going to begin, before we open a regular meeting, with a public hearing on application for a special land use at 273 Chandler. Parcel ID is 270134476039, and seeking the special land use in accordance with Ordinance 482, Article 9, R1, Single Family Residential, Section 9.02. The ordinance allows for bed and breakfast establishments under a special land use. This would be an existing residential structure on Chandler. If you have any comments, we'd like to hear them. Please stand, give your name and where you live.
Will the letter be read aloud, or should one of us?
Well, you can read it. I'd like everyone to keep their remarks under 5 minutes if possible.
Good evening, Franco Felino, 253 Chandler Street. I'll do my best to keep my remarks under 5 minutes. This letter has been signed by over 11 households in the village, some of whom are not here tonight, so I would ask that because some of those households are not here, perhaps I can get some leeway on that time requirement. The intent of this letter is to summarize the numerous concerns and objections held by the neighboring residents of the proposed special land use application for the bed and breakfast at 273 Chandler Street. It was troubling for us to learn that approval of the special land use permit was granted for the proposed B&B during the Planning Commission's June meeting. Entertaining discussion of the application without first confirming proper notification of the residents have been complied with, as required by Michigan compiled law 1253502, was a breach of state mandated procedures. Furthermore, the act of approving the application in the same meeting was careless. Due to the inattention of the village staff and planning commission, a discussion and premature approval of the SLU application occurred without allowing a fair environment to hear opposing views. This series of missteps led to the inappropriate influence of the planning commission's decision process on the SLU application. It has been difficult for the residents to gather factual information regarding the proposed B&B application. The village office finally provided a response to inquiries requesting the proposed application on July 8th, this last Monday, leaving residents with minimal time to form educated positions on the matter. In our research, we have come to the following conclusions, which we are requesting be heavily considered prior to holding another vote. First, the application for special land use at 273 Chandler Street is incomplete, as noted by the village planner in their review and advisement to the Planning Commission. A complete application should provide detailed written responses satisfying the standards for both B&B and special land use permit. During the June meeting, the Planning Commission decided to accept verbal additions and clarifications from the applicant, which still did not completely address all of the standards in their entirety. Nevertheless, approving a B&B SLU application in this manner has been found to be unorthodox with proper General State of Michigan Municipality Planning Commission protocol. Therefore, we as neighboring residents feel the following is appropriate. The SLU application should have been dismissed as the written application was incomplete. Approval based on verbal clarifications provided by the applicant creates an environment for future issues between the village, residents, and the applicant, as there is no written record to reference or enforce. The SLU application should only be considered for approval once a complete application is received by the village office. Second, it is understood a bed and breakfast is allowed or allowable by special land use in the R1 Single Family Residential District per Code of Ordinances, Village of Romeo, Section 46-153, special land uses. However, this entity will technically operate as a commercial business. In researching this issue, residents became aware of the actual intentions for this property, which were not disclosed in the SLU application. The end game for 273 Chandler Street B&B is to create a getaway type property aimed to entertain guests of multi-day stays centered around an on-site culinary experience. As residents, we feel this use to be beyond what is permitted by SLU for a B&B. We are deeply concerned as to why these plans were not divulged in the SLU application. This begs the question as to what other commercial activities are intended to ultimately occur at this property. Simply put, from what we found, this project will ultimately become an agricultural/culinary tourist destination that offers more amenities than that of a traditional B&B. Furthermore, this type of commercial activity is not congruent with the character, use, or spirit of the surrounding residential neighborhood. Third and finally, the intent of this SLU application is inconsistent with the Village of Romeo master plan by allowing commercial business operation, B&B plus agricultural culinary tourist destination, in a low-density residential district. This conflicts with the action strategy listed on page 39 of Romeo's current master plan. Quote, preserve and enhance the unique character of Romeo's single-family neighborhoods, end quote. This excerpt is from chapter 4 of the master plan, titled, quote, livability and great neighborhoods, end quote, featuring homes at the three-way intersection of Church Street and Chandler Street. Fate would have it, this is the exact neighborhood that will be negatively impacted by the presence of a commercial business disguised as a B&B. In summary, we feel it is the duty of every village official to take all possible measures to protect quality of life for the village people who reside within the village. Our families and homes will be subjected to the aftermath caused by this situation. We should not be subjected to living next to a fully fledged commercial operation. With respect to incomplete SLU application, the lack of public transparency surrounding the project's ultimate intentions, and the direct contradiction with the village master plan, we request the Planning Commission to either, 1, vote no on granting the special land use for the B&B at 273 Chandler Street, or 2, make a motion to postpone consideration of this case at least 2 months after the Village of Romeo adopts a short-term rental property ordinance and amends the B&B breakfast SLU language as necessary, in which an updated, new special land use application is subject to compliance of associated ordinances and respective standards and requirements if the applicant so chooses to resubmit. We thank you for consideration, and we trust you will make a thoughtful decision that upholds the best interests of our neighborhood. Signed, Franco and Melissa Felino, Brandon and Mary Cahoon, Richard and Gal Corey, Donna Foland, Chip and Deborah Bittigary, Matt and Julie Skelly, Rob and Kim Wing, Daniel and Ashley Gottschall, Joshua and Megan Waintz, Matt and Heidi Kaufman, John and Lindsay Leonard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob Wing, 260 Church Street, resident of Romeo Village for 22 years with my wife, Kim Wing. Thank you for entertaining our compelling thoughts tonight. Much appreciated. Transparency and supporting your residents is why we have this board and your duty to us. As been mentioned and cannot be overstated, regardless of our thoughts of a B&B in our backyard, the SLU was granted without proper notification of residents as required by law. Bottom line is that every village official to protect the quality of life for every and all village residents. Vote no on granting this special land use for the B&B at 273 Chandler. Postpone consideration of this case at least 2 months after the Village of Romeo adopts a short-term rental property ordinance and amends the B&B SLU language as necessary. Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
I'm Tom Ridley. I live at 307 Chandler. I am 2 houses away from the property in question. I'll have to admit to start that I haven't been in the fold here as far as the concerns that other neighbors have just expressed. And it sounds like there are some technical issues that need to be resolved. And that all is absolutely out in the open. But I've done a little research. I've talked with Cindy Wilson, and it was made very clear to me that permission for a B&B is not the same as a short-term rental or an Airbnb. I went on and asked her, has there ever been, or what type of procedure is necessary to revoke that permission? And she said, I don't know. We've never had to. Now, I can also tell you from personal experience, and I can't divulge the name, but you'll all know, a large house that was in Romeo and was a B&B for 10 years. I was personally acquainted with the situation. It all went very smoothly. It was a big house. It accommodated itself to guests. Most of those guests were either here for weddings, here for family gatherings, or were here for like Peach Festival, Memorial Day, whatever. This was not, don't think Cape May, New Jersey, we're here for beach going. It's all mostly for family affairs. There were a few guests that were different, interesting. A couple that was bicycling all across Michigan. These were interesting people. There was never, ever a problem. So I have no problem if Dale Wells wants to open a B&B. It has to be, you know, according to the rules, of course. But I do not have an objection to that. I mean, just think about it. One end of Church Street is the Abbey. The other end of Church Street would be the B&B. Imagine wedding guests walking up and down Church Street going to weddings, you know, in their Sunday best. I mean, I kind of picture it. It would be a nice thing to see in Romeo. Again, I don't want to see a party house, and I've been assured that's not what we're looking at. And that's all I have. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Chip Vittigary, 354 Chandler. I've lived there for 29 years, and I agree with the letter. Obviously, I signed it, but I just wanted to mention, it seems like it's very difficult to be notified about things like this, and we find out about it after the fact, things like that. I don't sit looking at the website. I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I can't do that. But I've seen in communities where proposed changes to zoning or applications for special land uses will have a sign put in front of it for a month saying, we're thinking about this. So that when you're driving by going to and from work, you see something's going on. Can we start doing that maybe? You know, we're not here to fight all the time, but we have to because we're behind the 8 ball. So my suggestion, let's start putting some signs out so we know. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
I know you guys don't see me very often, but we are at 295 Chandler, right next to the home. So I guess our problem is the transparency. When things come about, because we're super busy, we have kids in sports, we're not involved and don't watch the meetings. This fortunately came to our attention because Franco had just overheard the meeting and things like that. We need transparency. When it comes to the exact situation of the B&B, we have fortunately followed through on some of the inquiries, and it is all over the place. They don't have any idea, from what we've gathered from the potential investor with Mr. Wells, they don't really have any idea what's going on. We sat down with him for a couple hours one night, and it was all over the place. They weren't sure who was gonna be staying there. They weren't sure what type of amenities they would have. They weren't sure if it was gonna be this gentleman's family, if it was gonna be a maid, if it was hopefully gonna be a Michelin star chef with kids. And we're like, that's random. They have no idea what's going on. So I think that definitely, hopefully we can postpone this so that they can kind of get their ducks in a row and we can see what's going on and go from there at that point. Thank you.
Question, ma'am?
No. You can't make remarks during this.
I didn't
No
hear the
marks.
beginning.
Oh.
I didn't know your name or your
Oh,
street.
Mary and Brandon Cahoon at 295 Chandler, right next to, on the side where they're proposing to put the 24-car parking lot, I think. We're right on the side of the catwalk, what we call the catwalk, because that's where we went to school.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else like to make comment? Okay.
My name is Matthew Kaufman. I'm a resident of the village. I live on 364 Lexington Circle. I want to start off by saying that I'm in the agreement with the letter previously read by Mr. Felino, and myself and my wife did sign the letter. I came here tonight to voice some concerns I have with the granting of the special land use permit for the proposed bed and breakfast. Number one being the public was not informed of the meeting where the permit was granted, and were not afforded the opportunity to voice their concerns and objections. Now, I am not in the direct proximity of this property, but going forward, if this is how the village operates, I'd be none the wiser if something were to happen in my neighborhood. Number two, the village granted a special land use permit for an incomplete application that had several issues and many unknowns. And number three, the village has an outdated ordinance for temporary rentals and has been proven when the village agreed to put a moratorium in place to revamp the current ordinance. So lastly, there's an incomplete application with too many unknowns that could greatly impact local residents. Allowing this to continue would set a bad precedence going forward on how the village operates. I think the logical solution would be for the village to postpone their decision until a complete application can be submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a comment?
Hi, my name is Ashley Gottschall. So we just moved here and just purchased a house on 245 Chandler. And I will say that we wouldn't have purchased the house if we had known that we'd be living next to a B&B. And I'll reiterate what everybody else has said, that transparency is really important to us. I actually heard that this was going to be a B&B from a friend who is hired by the investors and owners of this location, because my little sisters are great friends with this person. So that is how I found out. That is how I let my neighbors know that it was going to be a B&B, because I was curious. I started asking questions. And I just want to encourage more honesty and less, and sorry if this is harsh, but what feels like very underhanded actions at the start of our experience here in Romeo. So I would say I just encourage a moratorium, and I encourage the postponement of this. So I appreciate you letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, it doesn't appear that anyone else wants to make a comment, so let's begin the regular
We have
meeting.
to close.
Oh,
We need to
okay.
close the special, or the hearing.
All right. The public hearing is hereby closed.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's begin the regular meeting. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Cindy, let's do roll call now.
Stegner,
Oh, here.
Bill Parker,
Yeah.
Hall. Here.
Oh, he is here.
Minton,
Here.
Webb,
Here.
Fowler. Here. Hale,
Here.
Grandstaff,
Here.
Justin Parker.
Present.
That's it? All right, let's move on to approval of the agenda for tonight. Anybody want to add anything or make comment?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for July 11th, 2024 as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we move on to approval of the meeting minutes from June 6, 2024. Any,
The only concern I have with this is that I was late to this meeting. It shows me as present, which is fine, but then it also talks about stuff that was voted on before I got here, and it said yays were all. So I think it should be just clarified, the stuff that I was not here for to vote on, that I was absent for that part of. So I don't know if we could go back and just watch the time that I got here, and anything before that, just change that to an absent for me, or not currently present, or didn't vote, or however we want to put that, just so that the record is legit.
We can amend that, right?
What didn't you hear?
I walked
Get it right
in
here.
probably somewhere in the middle of this meeting.
Yeah, I don't think it was that late, Justin. You were just a little bit late. It was in the middle of the meeting.
That's my
I'll watch,
recollection.
I'll
I-
watch the film.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I got here about 7:20-ish, I think.
I'll watch.
We'll just have to watch it back.
Okay.
So that's a motion by Parker to amend.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with changes to the time that I was present.
I'll second. Motion before us is to approve the last month's agenda with changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. At this point, we open a public forum in which anybody can comment on anything they'd like to comment on. Anybody have anything to say?
Franco Felino again, 253 Chandler Street. My home is the southern border of the proposed B&B, just so we understand the reference. I don't want to repeat anything that was stated in the letter, but I would like to make some additional points in this matter. During the June 6th meeting, the proposed bed and breakfast was likened to a church by one of the board members who also said they didn't think the board should be, quote, picky, unquote, with the applicant. Simply put, this is not a church. It's the furthest thing from it. This is a commercial operation in the middle of a neighborhood. The main point we're trying to make here is that this is not a simple SLU request. It is a large-scale commercial operation disguised as an SLU request. A complete application that divulges the entirety of the applicant's plans should be required before this matter can move forward. This is a reasonable request that should be expected of any SLU application in order to preserve our residential neighborhoods and protect it from spot zoning situations, such as the one before you tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Rob Wing of 260 Church Street. In reference to the proposed B&B, I think it's critical that the resident of this proposal is actually the resident of the B&B, if indeed it does happen. Not a 1099 chef, an employee. That person needs to live at a B&B, period. That's it. That there should be no wiggle room there at all if indeed this does happen. But just moving forward, I think that's a point that needs to be taken because we've lived at 260 for the time we've lived there. We've seen the Gray House become much better with Dale's efforts, been great. But at the same time, down the road, if this happens and there is a B&B and it doesn't work out and suddenly it starts falling apart, and if there's someone living there that owns it, that's a different story. There's some accountability there. There needs to be check and balance with any operation of this type. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, if there are no further comments, we'll move on to our unfinished business. Special Land Use 273 Chandler. Ms. LeVar, would you like to review?
So the special land use review is for 273 Chandler Street. The applicant requests a special land use approval for the bed and breakfast. This would be in an existing residential structure on Chandler Street, north of 32 Mile. The site is approximately 1.53 acres in area and contains a main residence, a carriage house, and a pavilion. 9 individual suites and 1 family suite are shown on the main residence's floor plans, as well as various lounging, dining, and entertainment areas. The carriage house floor plans show dining and sitting areas. A total of 14 parking spaces has been provided on site. The site does meet the area height and placement requirements. Well, it meets the setback requirements for the district, except the shed. However, because all these are existing structures, any deviation from these standards would be considered an existing nonconformity. The special land use, so bed and breakfast establishments are considered a special land use in the R1 district, subject to the following. Item number 1, the rooms utilized for lodging purposes shall be part of the primary residential use and shall not have been specifically constructed for rental purposes. Through discussion at the June Planning Commission meeting, the applicant implicated that they would be working within the existing footprint of the home and no additions would be a part of this project. Michigan law limits bed and breakfast establishments to 10 bedrooms, one which is for the primary resident. This would provide 9 bedrooms for guests. The applicant should confirm which room is intended for the primary resident. The applicant should confirm that this section of the ordinance is met. Item number 2, there shall be no separate cooking facilities used for the bed and breakfast rooms. The standard is met. The resident shall be occupied at all times. At the June Planning Commission meeting, the applicant had confirmed that there would be a primary resident occupying the home at all times at the bed and breakfast. Number 4, sufficient off-street parking has been provided to meet the requirements of the existing single-family structure as specified in section 46-613. The applicant has provided a parking layout of 14 spaces and a 90-degree parking pattern, with each space measuring 10 by 20. Signage shall comply with the requirements of section 46-578. No signage has been proposed at this time. This will be a separate administrative review. And item number 6, adequate lavatory, bathing facilities, and kitchen facilities for the lodging rooms shall be provided as per requirement of County Health Department or other appropriate regulatory agency. The applicant will need to confirm that this standard is met. In addition, the Village of Romeo specifies several review standards that must be met to be grant special land use approval. Therefore, my recommendation is, I do recommend approval of the bed and breakfast use upon the applicant being able to address any other concerns and the Planning Commission finding such use to be appropriate for that specific location within the Village of Romeo.
Thank you. Okay, item number 2, special land use 273 Chandler. Do we have any comments from the Planning Commission? Anyone?
I do, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
Because I was not here at the June meeting, so I wasn't privy to any information that was provided at that time by the applicant. I guess my question would be is how, when I always look through the special land use applications, the permit applications, I'm always looking for where's the narrative, the write-up, the description of, I see the blueprints and I've looked those over, but I'm looking for, where's the narrative that says this is what we're going to do, it's going to run these hours or these days or this, I don't see that anywhere, so I guess I'm wondering where, how do we know that we're gonna use this for what we said we're gonna use it for? Like, where's my proof, I guess, or my facts, I don't see that, I know I read where it says discussions were had last month, but I guess I'm looking for more information of what we're doing with this, so, I don't.
What do you feel is missing specifically?
Well, when there's those things that say the applicant needs to confirm that the standard will be met, so my concern is I'm gonna vote now on something that I'm gonna hope that happens down the road. I'm not okay with that not being, because then when I go back and I look in my packet where I'm looking in the information and the blueprints, I'm looking for those kind of things, like where does it say those items? about the cooking facilities or the resident is gonna be occupied. I'm looking for the applicant to give me that, not something that the planner reviewed, because that's what, like, I don't feel like we're getting that information.
I agree.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
are we gonna have the applicant speak or no?
Yes.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. Would you like to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Richard Linnell. My address is 2804 Orchard Lake Road, Suite 203. That's Kego, K-E-E-G-O, Harbor, Michigan. I am here on behalf of the applicant to my right, Mr. Dale Wells. I know that you, when I say you, Ms. Fowler has said she wasn't here, and I had the benefit of being able to watch a video of the prior hearing. And so I would just want to start by saying that unless it's requested, I wouldn't want to go over the same information. But if requested, certainly we would. I think there's a couple important things that I would want to bring to, or to comment on based on comments already made, and Mr. Wells, again, is here for more detail. Specifically, there appears to be, well, quite honestly, maybe a lack of information. And certainly, Mr. Wells is prepared to answer questions, but I want to be clear, and clear to members that are attending here today, the intent is to operate this as a bed and breakfast. Now, someone might say, well, that's great for intent, Rick, but what's really going to happen? And I'd say, well, what's really going to happen is what's permitted within the ordinance. Because if you operate outside of the ordinance, I can tell you, because that's a large part of my practice, what happens. Municipalities take action. They don't allow people to operate outside the ordinance, especially when you have neighbors that are vested in their neighborhood and what's happening adjacent to them. Because, quite honestly, the municipality is able to receive feedback if something is happening that is inconsistent with what is permitted by the use. And so suggestions about likening this to short-term rental, I certainly can understand that. But I'd say, and I certainly wouldn't want to sound insulting, but I'd say that's a little bit misguided. I deal with short-term rentals on a regular basis, fighting in municipalities, both enforcing short-term rentals or private restrictions, and sometimes in opposition to them. A short-term rental, the issues generally speaking, and I'm speaking specifically to the House bills and the Senate bills that have languished actually for the last 3 years. Generally speaking, what I hear when I'm in the various groups, and there's one from the Bar Association, there's other ones, the concern for municipalities and for residents is that, quite honestly, in a short-term rental, you don't have anybody there except the short-term renter. And the short-term renter generally is not vested in the community. And I would suggest to you that that's quite different than what a bed and breakfast is. A bed and breakfast is part of a community. It's already been stated in various ways that somebody has to live there. Somebody is part of the community. This isn't, hey, here's my place, do as you see fit. There are regulations, there are restrictions that must be followed in order to continue to operate as a bed and breakfast. And I can represent to you that that's exactly what Mr. Wells and his proposed partner would in fact do. The idea that you know, what might he do next? What expanded use? Well, as I'm sure I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, to the members of the Planning Commission, that is, you only get to do what's permitted by the ordinance. If you want to do something else with your property, you need to get permission. And if you don't get permission, you don't get to do it. And if you do it anyways and you go rogue, well, then there are ways to remove the special land use. And so, again, we're happy to answer questions, but I'd want to make sure, and I think I'm probably talking to the residents of the area that have spoken in opposition, that there is no intent to do anything other than what is permitted pursuant to the restrictions that govern what can happen at a bed and breakfast. That's what's intended to happen. There was a comment, for instance, about parking. Well, then you hear from the planner that the parking is required. So, you know, I had a chance to go to the house. It's beautiful. It's not finished, but it is stunning, and the neighborhood's quite nice. I was not surprised, but it was impressive. You know, I'm not here to make general statements. I want to stick to the issue, but generally speaking, a bed and breakfast is something that's looked upon fondly. I've been to bed and breakfast many times, quite honestly at my wife's direction, but every time I'm like, man, this is really nice. They're oftentimes considered an asset of a community. I'm not going to make a broad statement that that's always the case, because, well, I haven't been to every bed and breakfast, but you know, it's usually an asset. It's a place for when you have guests in town, when you have weddings, when you're here for an event. There's a place to stay, a nice place to stay, a cozy place to stay, a place that's a unique stay. I mean, the house is spectacular, but I mean, really spectacular. And this is a chance for someone to experience that, to experience a historic home right in the heart of an existing, what looks like, at least many of the houses are historic in nature. If there are specific criteria, and again, I saw the video and I saw the 8 criteria that were addressed. I think there was a comment about the garage was labeled event room, and Mr. Wells corrected that, and I saw it, it's a garage, but it would be marked correctly. I can't recall if there were any other comments, but for the most part, they seem to be addressed in the meeting, which is why, I assume, not having been here, is why the Planning Commission voted to recommend approval to the village board. So with that said, I'm happy to answer questions. My client is here if there are more detailed questions to be asked. There's one thing I would add, and this is, unfortunate it just didn't happen. My client made a significant effort to meet with adjacent homeowners in the area, through text, through telephone calls, and a meeting was scheduled. I believe it was scheduled for a couple days ago. Unfortunately, just before the meeting happened, the people that had advised they were able to attend were unable to attend. So I just would want to make it clear that I understand that maybe residents don't have all the information that they'd like to get, but there was a significant effort by my client to do that. But it unfortunately just didn't work out. But I would say not for lack of effort by my client, and I wouldn't want to insinuate for lack of effort by the residents. But for whatever reason, it just didn't come to fruition. But my client is excited about this. He's proud of it. He's happy to tell people about it. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to say this is wonderful, but he wanted to make an effort to make sure people had a chance to ask the questions in a setting, not necessarily this setting, but before this setting, so that they could really appreciate what he was trying to do, even if they didn't appreciate it, quite honestly. But they could take the time to digest the plans, the boards he has, and ask these, what's his vision for it? And I would tell you that his vision is to run a bed and breakfast. I don't believe Dale's ever run a hotel or a bed and breakfast or anything like this, but he's a serial entrepreneur and is definitely part of this community, invested, and looks forward to hopefully being granted approval ultimately and getting your recommendation today. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions, as is Mr. Wells.
Thank you. I'm sorry, your name one more time?
Sure. My name is Richard, last name Linnell, spelled Linnell.
No,
Feel free to call me Rick.
Great. So a couple questions I do have for you. One, if we look at what is now says garage, what are those rooms right off the garage that look like they're encompassed within the garage? What are those?
Yes. This is a bathroom.
Bathroom. So a garage that needs 2 separate bathrooms?
Well, there's a door right here. Bathroom's in the
off
house.
The garage, right? I don't see any other entrances into 2 separate bathrooms off the garage, which currently was labeled event space, which now we're seeing something that doesn't say event space. So this is a different proposal that's being presented to us, different from the first application. So this has been changed. When you change something in a proposal from an initial application, that would require a new application.
Sure.
Correct?
What are you, well, you say correct. I'm not agreeing with you, but I'm asking.
Does it say garage? Because in the original one we saw last month, It said garage/event space.
Yeah, but I would suggest to you that
What your
I
client said, right, I'm assuming you're his attorney, said that initially his intent was if someone wanted to rent the whole thing and have a conference or a shower, he made every intent of saying it was gonna be used for an event space. And then later on stated, oh, I don't even know why it's on there. It shouldn't have been on there. So initially he said, yeah, I'm gonna have events. Then said, no, I'm not gonna have events. Lied to this whole board, one or the other, and now it's changed. This proposal is changed. It does not fit the first application, number one. Number two.
Do you want me to address that?
If you, go ahead, please.
Sure. I got to be honest with you. I'm here to answer questions. I don't know why you're being so aggressive.
That's just
but-
the way I am.
Well, let me be clear. On the record, it was said that it shouldn't be marked as event, so it's not an event center. And then the vote took place. And I was able to see that video.
Mm-hmm.
And so as part of any approval, those questions or those comments or the plan in particular is corrected to reflect that. So the idea that it was mismarked, or I'll take your version, that's not what I saw in the video, but we'll just go with your version.
So you didn't hear him state that he planned on using it for events initially?
The garage?
Yes.
No.
He said if someone rented the whole thing.
I understand what you're
Then they
saying.
could have events in there.
I
You
heard
missed
what
that?
you're saying.
So you must have missed it.
That might be your interpretation. I hear your words. You want me to say that you're right.
You don't
I-
have to
I
say
don't
I'm right.
concur.
You can say whatever you want.
But-
But if
well,
you
then-
watch it back, that was clearly
Sure.
said.
Well, then let me say what I want, which is to say that a representation was made, it wouldn't be an event center. Now, if you want to go back to what was said previously, you can, and then you couched it as, well, he must have been lying first or lying second. That doesn't make it a lie. More importantly, any approval or recommendation for approval is based on what's stated on the record. What he stated on the record is not an event center. This drawing is consistent with what he said. Now, you can rehash it. I can't stop you. That's your right. But I want to be clear. My client is not a liar. It's inappropriate for you to even say that on the record when you have no evidence of it.
We can
So
watch
for
the
you to
video.
editorialize is completely inappropriate.
We can watch the video.
That doesn't make him a liar if he said that. He said it can't be an event center. He said it's not an event center.
So he changed the proposal from what was
Have
originally
it,
submitted.
do you want to keep mincing words?
I'm not. I'm clearly stating what has changed.
He addressed
Now.
that at the last meeting and it was voted for. You were there. You saw it. This bathroom, this is the only bathroom on the first floor.
Through the garage.
Well, I don't know why you keep saying through the garage. If you have a bathroom in your house that's next to your garage, is that through your garage? And what does that even mean, through your
Can you get
garage?
to that through the house, or do you have to go through the garage?
Through the house. Look at the plan.
Yeah, I am. I got a real small version here in front of me, and that's what I'm asking you. Can you enter that through the house?
Yes, I did it myself today. I used the bathroom from the house. I stayed in the house.
Okay.
We could go over there if you want to try it.
Okay. That's what I'm asking, because I cannot tell.
I'm
from
telling you
this
once
drawing.
again, it's in the house.
Okay. So two separate bathrooms next to each other. right
That
off in the
service
same-
a 9,000 square foot house. That's the only bathroom on the first
Just one
floor.
floor, because you said there's other bathrooms.
There are.
Okay.
There's an in-suite in every room.
Understand,
Every bedroom.
understand. The other question I would have would be the proposed bedrooms. While one is somewhat labeled a suite, right, it has two separate bedrooms. So that would indicate that it is beyond the maximum number, right? Two separate bedrooms, two separate doors, two separate entrances off a hallway, separated by a bathroom. So now I think we're over the maximum number of bedrooms allowed.
Well, I would defer
Number
to your
two.
planner.
Yep.
And my understanding is the family suite can be a suite. She did mention that there can be 10 bedrooms.
10
That's the maximum.
Bedrooms.
10 rooms. I'm not going to put
Yeah,
words in
yeah.
your mouth or hers.
Yeah.
I'm going to let her speak for herself.
Yeah, so maybe that's
But
more
I
of a
didn't catch
question for our
anything
planner.
that alludes to what you're suggesting.
Okay. Yeah, so my main concerns were the bathrooms off the garage, but if you're saying there's entrances through the house also, okay. And then the changing of what is submitted today compared to what was submitted originally with the original application.
It is accurate. This is consistent with what was approved or recommended for approval
It's
in
not what
June.
was originally submitted, though.
Yes, you got me.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? No comments, okay,
Jim, can I,
Well, I thought were questions.
can I ask Karen a question?
sure.
In two places here, you've indicated the applicant should confirm that the section of the ordinance is met. You're referring to the fact that there may in fact be some obscure or unknown county health department code that's not, and you're not.
Correct.
you're-
I
you-
imagine
the-
that the applicant would be doing their due diligence to.
Having personally been in B&Bs which did not have an in-suite bath, I can tell you he's way in excess of anything I've ever been in. Every bedroom here has got its own bathroom. And I just as a, I understand you are stating specifically, hey, I'm not certifying that there might not be other codes out here that he's going to have to address with the health department. That's the only implication of your statement.
Correct, and, for instance, when there's regulations like this, it's understood that whatever county inspection that is needed will happen. They try to operate their business without having whatever necessary approvals needed to happen. Code enforcement. the
Fire
village will
department
come in
people
say,
and-
hey, you did not meet X, Y, Z here.
Right, the fire department people have to give their certification, and you're not certifying anything, because we're not seeing anything about a fire suppression system or an alarm system.
Right.
There are all types of other physical codes that you're not involved with, and that's what you're saying.
Right, and a lot of those plans typically aren't submitted until after this first step, because this is the first step where someone's trying to figure out.
Can I
is
do
this
it?
possible?
Yeah.
And if it's not possible, then you're not gonna hire your structural, your mechanical, your.
You're not gonna get the fire suppression people to give their certificate and all the rest of the stuff, which would go to Mike, and he would spend days going over it, because he enjoys that type of thing. Sorry, that was, just wanted to clarify what those two comments were about.
So then if I could follow up with Karen then also, because standard one, right, you feel he meets that or does not?
I feel that he meets it because it is an existing home. If the home was built full cloth, new, or if it was an addition.
Can you read the standard, please?
Sure, the language says.
Can you use the microphone, please?
Sure. The rooms utilized for lodging purposes shall be part of the primary residential use and have not been specifically constructed for residential purposes.
Okay, so it's talking about the rooms utilized for lodging.
Right.
Not the footprint of the existing home, or the existing home whatsoever, there's no additions or whatever. It is talking about the rooms utilized for lodging, which we know are specifically being constructed, based off the last meeting, for this purpose,
So.
as stated.
My interpretation of this is, I don't know what the original floor plan of this home was. I don't know how much these rooms follow it, or, it's a unique situation because it's a restoration of an existing building. It's not an addition. Someone's not building a tiny home in their backyard and deciding to rent that out for Airbnb purposes. The rooms utilized for lodging purposes shall be part of the primary residential use. So the rooms are going to be part of a primary residence. Someone's going to be living there full-time. That is going to be their home.
And not constructed, right, for rental purposes. These rooms are being constructed at this time for a bed and breakfast.
The plan commission's going to have to make that determination.
Okay, and then I would also question then you on the suite having 2 bedrooms. Yes,
Also-
adjoined by a bathroom, but that is 2 separate bedrooms. And then we could arguably say that whatever is upstairs from there is another lodging area. A separate floor above the suite.
For the family suite loft, Justin.
Yes.
You're referring to.
My understanding is it looks like there's 2 separate bedrooms that are labeled as one on the second floor.
Second floor there.
With the suite above,
Yeah.
or the, whatever we're calling it. I don't think it's
Which,
actually.
I'm sorry, what's the suite number?
There isn't, it just says family suite.
That's serviced by a circular staircase.
So-
The only way to get through it is through
There's
the
a-
family suite,
Okay.
right?
There is
That's
a
okay.
room here and a room here.
True, and that's,
So this
these people,
family suite,
that's a
he's-
master bedroom, they got a kid or a
bedroom.
crib room.
This,
And then there's another upstairs for lodging?
That's
Okay.
that's their family room, private.
So it's two separate bedrooms? There's two separate
It's a
bedrooms.
suite.
It's two separate bedrooms,
You
it's
wanna
as
have a little-
defined.
You want to have a
So
five-year-old
the
sleeping
family
in the room
suite-
with you?
How often have you gone to a hotel with your kids? Maybe, I don't know. And
Me?
you have.
Never.
Yeah, I take my kid and we share a single hotel room.
We don't.
and children.
Dale?
Let's speak in the microphone, please.
Dale, you're going to have to speak into the microphone, please.
Sorry.
If I may, the family suite that you're looking at here has a,
Circular staircase right in the center.
well, the big thing is here, is this is one bathroom for both of these.
Right.
Okay.
So this would be rented together.
So in the June meeting, we couldn't hear anything that was presented on the floor. This needs to be spoken in the microphone, please. It needs to go on the official record. What's being presented needs to be part of the record, please.
Okay.
It's only fair.
Okay. Do you want to see it? I mean, you have the pictures there, and what it is a family suite is one bathroom with two bedrooms. So that may be the place that our manager lives in with a child or two. So that's why that's set up that way. And if somebody wants to rent it as one, it could be rented as one with a,
you'd be
these are
exceeding the
upscale rooms that are there. I mean, this isn't just a
So
bunch-
you could lock a door and rent it separately then, if they wanted to?
No, well, we could rent one room,
Yeah.
but you can't have a common bathroom between two.
Oh, you
tenants.
easily can in a bed and breakfast.
Well,
I've been to
That's
some.
not the way we would do it.
So it's not operating like a bed and breakfast, it's more like a hotel.
Pardon me?
I don't understand why you want to be so confrontational. He answered your question. If you don't like the answer, that's acceptable.
And then
But
I
you
can,
keep
and I
confronting
can
him,
follow
calling him
up with a
liar.
question.
You said he's not operating like a B&B. You know the laws about bed and breakfast? What's the law? There is no law. So when you say you can't have a shared bathroom, he's saying, no, that's not the way he would operate it. Yet
Okay.
you continue to challenge him.
Yeah, and that's what I'm here
Based
to
on
do.
what? What do you know about bed and breakfast that says you can't have a shared bathroom? What do you know?
What do I know is they're all over the state, all over the country, you can have shared bathrooms if you want.
You didn't hear what he said then. He
And that's what I
not the
said.
way- He said that's not the way he intends to operate his bed and breakfast. You said, well, then you're not operating a bed and breakfast. That was your exact words.
And then you
You're
cut me
wrong.
off and maybe I didn't finish,
It's
but
okay,
that's
you're
okay.
wrong.
Okay.
Any other questions from the planning commission members?
Yeah, Jim.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead,
All
Jenny.
right. And my question would be on the third floor plan. So is there anything on the third floor
Yes.
that was existing from the previous? Or are we building all these suites and bathrooms for a bed and breakfast? Is that third floor, was it ever built out previously? Or is this all gonna be new construction in the third
It
floor?
depends on when. You know, it's gutted now. You know, there was a fire in this home at one time. There's a lot of things that have changed. So, our plans are to build it out in a fashion that'll make an upscale bed and breakfast. You know, I want this to be a gem for this community. I don't want it to be a flop house. That's not the way I do things.
Bill Parker?
No, thank you, Jim. Dale, this thing shows 10 suites,
Yep,
okay?
10 room, 10 suites, yeah.
One of these has to be your resident manager's
Correct.
principal bedroom, and that's all it's ever going to be. That's not going to be a rental room.
Well, it depends on, yeah, when they live there, that's their room.
I guess I have a real problem with this showing me 10 rooms, 10 separate suites. And the law is
And
you can
there's
only have.
9 to rent and 1 that they're living in?
Yeah, which one's it gonna be?
We're not sure.
Well, I don't think we,
Well,
personally,
Let me just elaborate a little bit. If we hired a manager that had children, it would take that master suite, that big suite. If we hired a couple that didn't have children, that suite would be a luxury suite where someone could stay there with their children. That's the whole idea of that, of the room. It has flexibility. And I would hopefully be able to change the resident manager's suite from one place to another. The manager may want to live on the first floor instead of upstairs. So that's things that we would work out as we hired the person to live there and manage the bed and breakfast. Did I answer your question, Bill?
yeah, Dale, I think you gotta tell us which one's gonna be the primary. And it should, sometime in the future, that needs to change, then you would need to notify the village of that.
I can
Period.
tell you if that, but it may change. I mean, right now, I think that we would like to use the 1 to 2 room suite in case we have managers that have a child.
Mr. Parker, if I may?
Yes, sir.
We would have no problem if you added that as a condition, that the room that is occupied by the resident manager must be identified in writing by Mr. Wells, and if it's to change, he must notify the village in writing, whoever you deem is appropriate. We have no issue. It is not intended to be hopscotching around, but Mr. Wells would like to retain the option, if managers change, that he could give them, because quite honestly, it might be an inducement to get a manager, as stated in the various scenarios. So we have no problem if that's a condition to the approval, that it must be designated in writing for that manager.
I would still argue that even though it's a suite, the state law says bedrooms, not suites, and within one suite, there is 2 bedrooms, which puts it over the maximum limit as presented.
I don't agree with you, Justin. I just wanna know which one's gonna be the resident manager's residence.
The law says bedrooms. Clearly. As presented, 10 bedrooms. It doesn't say suites. I mean, I could have a suite with 4 bedrooms in it. Right? Does that make it different?
You're right. I don't often think you're right,
I know that.
but you do have a technical problem. You may want to ask us to table it until you can decide how you're going to get this down to the proper number of bedrooms. If the state law says 10 bedrooms, and this drawing clearly shows more than that, and one of those has to be labeled as a primary, as the resident managers or the residents, I think we need to know that before we can vote on it. Because I would vote to table it until we know that information.
To address your comments, Mr. Parker,
Right. Which one?
specifically the one about the bedroom.
Which Parker?
The
Well, I'll address both of you.
Okay.
How about that?
No relation.
You look related.
No.
He's a lot better looking than I am.
It's true.
I agree. To address the comment about the number of bedrooms, which you brought up, Mr. Justin Parker, but it was also echoed by Mr. Bill Parker, we have no problem stipulating to the 10 bedrooms. We would like a vote. We understand that the plans will have to be modified such that they can only be 10 bedrooms. We understand one of which will be operated by the on-site manager, but we would not want that to hold up a vote. And again, we understand the comment, we accept the comment, and one of the bedrooms, I don't know which one, Dale doesn't know which one, wants to talk to his partner to determine which one makes the most sense, but we understand and accept 10 bedrooms, period, of which one will be for the on-site manager.
How would we word that, Jim? Well, Cindy, what kind of
That's a
wording
complete
would
change
we
of
need to
plans.
put that in there?
So if we're going to vote for approval, that language has to be in the motion. So, gosh.
Yeah,
mean,
I would argue
I
again
don't-
that
I don't-
changes the plans completely.
I also don't agree.
It's changed from what we saw last month, which you weren't here for. And now we're gonna get another change, and it's not being presented. We still don't have any clarification for the standard number 6.
Why would, I mean, with the SLUs, you vote on them individually through. It's, do you agree with it or do you not agree with it, right? You read them off, we say yes, we say no, correct?
Right.
There's no motion to it.
That's
We
correct.
either agree with it or we don't. So I would say that altering the language to that without concrete is difficult.
Well, we go through the review standards, but then we vote on whether or not to grant the special land use, which it would be within that motion that we say, you know, stipulating blah, 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 you know, whatever we're going to say.
Yeah.
So we can do that, whatever that language is going to be.
So we need to do the standards.
Yes, we need to do review standards. So why don't we just move on to review standards? There are 8 review standards that we're going to go through. I will read each one, and then the commission will vote on each standard, whether they agree or disagree.
Before we get there, I'm sorry, just to take this a little further, because there's other areas I wanted to touch on, which maybe was more of a question for Karen, our planner. What is the, and maybe it's a question for you also, what is the intended use of this carriage house and pavilion? That would be, who's ever on the mic, please?
Right now, it's storage. So anything else we would change from that, we would have to come back to, for permits and so on, and plans.
Because as we're being presented now, which I didn't know if I saw this last time, is a kitchen, a lounge.
Oh, that's the pavilion there. It's a outside activity building that's not built, it's just the deck.
Okay, and the carriage house?
The carriage house is merely storage at this point. It could be garage space, but it's primarily just storage. There may be future use, but we would certainly go for permits and plans.
But there is a pavilion on here which is showing a separate kitchen, maybe a fireplace.
Well,
It's
not
very
so-
unclear exactly what's on here, lounge
It's an
area.
outside kitchen area.
It's not a kitchen, it's a patio.
It's an outside patio with a kitchen.
There's no building structure to be, I know there's people talking there. To be clear, Mr. Parker, there is no outdoor structure, there's no walls, there's no roof, it's just a cement patio. You're seeing use as an outdoor facility as proposed, that's something they'd like, but there is no construction of any structure. Now,
I do have a question, because it's on the plans that we're seeing now as presented. I mean, obviously, there's a carriage house for a purpose. Obviously, couldn't have any bedrooms or anything moving forward.
As stated, it would be storage, and again, we understand if you put that in the motion, as we talked about the 10 bedrooms, if you wanted to add that note that it's for storage, we already said it, but we understand if you wanted that to be part of the motion itself, that it's understood that that is for storage and any use.
So what's labeled as a pavilion is actually just a patio? But it's
Yeah.
not a pavilion?
I believe that would be what someone might refer to as an architect's,
Pavilion would have a roof or some type of canopy, right? A pavilion.
I'm not sure of the exact definition of a pavilion, but I can tell you this doesn't have a roof, and it isn't planned to have a roof. We're not
So
asking
what
for a
would be
roof.
the intended use of that,
It would be an outdoor space for people to congregate.
to congregate? Okay.
Yeah, to sit out, have a drink, sit in lawn furniture.
Stayed in one of these in Indianapolis, and you could, they
That's
had a
fine.
grill
This
and
is
all
in
that crap
Indianapolis.
outside, and you could
This is
sit there and
Romeo.
do that. I know that.
I'm
But it
tired
was-
of comparing us to different cities that we are not.
But it was still a B and B, and they had an outside grill area.
So, can I ask another clarifying question?
Yes, of course.
So with regards to that pavilion, because what's proposed in this shows that it's got a full functioning kitchen and a bar, the lounge area. If that's something that you're saying doesn't
In the
exist now,
pavilion?
yes.
You're saying in the pavilion?
Right.
The pavilion shows that it has like a pizza oven out there.
Right.
That's it. You take some pizza out there, you put it in the oven, and you got a table and chairs like in your patio,
Bar.
like people do.
Yes, there's a sink and a bar, a grill, a griddle, a high top. I guess I'm just concerned if I'm gonna vote yes on this, and you're showing me prints, this is what you're saying, it's only a concrete pad, but I'm voting on that, then
This is a structure.
now we're building a structure that we didn't realize we were voting on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bar area is just for serving the bar. There's no plumbing out there or anything.
It shows a sink, it shows a griddle.
Well,
it
but
shows-
griddle. Oh, that's the pizza oven, is what it shows.
Griddle, pizza oven, grill.
Well, the sink could be there, but it's gonna
Bar,
be a dry
sink.
sink.
Well, I don't see anything labeled sink. Do you see something labeled sink?
Well, that's what that is, and that's on a blueprint, that's what that
Yeah.
is.
That's what that symbol would
That
represent on
symbol
a traditional
represents a sink.
blueprint.
Well, but there's no plumbing out there, so the sink would be a dry sink that you would use, put ice in there, that kind of thing, because there's no plumbing to that building.
No, I understand that, I guess I'm just saying, we're asked to vote on this, and you're saying that's not going to happen, but then I have a drawing that says it is, so I don't wanna vote on that portion of it saying, I'm approving that, and that gets built out, and if that wasn't our intent to approve that portion of it. I guess that's, because that's part of the plans that are presented here, is this built-out pavilion.
To the council or chair, was this in the last month's packet, this portion?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't know if I
got
don't know.
that.
I must have not. I don't know if I got that.
You've heard my client speak on it. Again, we can amend it, but and I don't think my client fully knows exactly how they would use that space. He has a partner, and quite honestly, he hasn't done a bed and breakfast before. But the furniture you see could be lawn furniture. The bar itself could be temporary, as I've seen in many outdoor situations. The pizza oven, I have one at home I can pick up and carry around. I have a grill, I can roll it around. So it's drawn in a quite a nice way, but there is no firm plan as to what to do other than to try and use that to make a space for the guests. If you say, hey, no plumbing, you can't do that, which would of course require permits anyways, but you say that can't happen without coming back and requesting approval, so we accept that.
If I could follow up and ask another question. So what would be the purpose of a stationary or portable bar for a guest, right? You've got an individual guest, maybe we're saying one or two people in the room. Are they gonna rent a portable bar to serve their wife or husband?
Well,
Or why would you need a portable bar at a bed and breakfast?
Well, I can only speak to my experience, but if you have, in this case, 9 rooms, so you might have 18 people, it's an area where people might congregate and sit out and have a drink. I mean, I can't tell you what they do.
And then one of the guests would then serve drinks to their other family members or whoever showed up?
I did.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Parker. I don't think we know. We're not, I mean, it's a bed and breakfast. Whatever the rules are, they're saying, what are you asking specifically? If they can go out there and have a drink?
Well, sure. I mean, if someone wants to sit on a porch, sit on the patio, have a drink.
And they have a
I'm
glass
just
of wine?
trying to understand the concept of having a stationary or portable bar.
Sure.
With a dry sink for ice and a pizza oven for 2 people? Or are they gonna rent that separate, or they're gonna go out and serve their, but then again, if someone rents every room, we're back to what we said didn't happen at the last meeting.
I'm not really sure where you're trying to go, but you can just ask me the question plainly if you want. You don't have to dance around it. Just ask it.
Well, I think I did.
I can tell you the bed and breakfast will go under if only 2 people show up. So you keep saying 2 people, 9 rooms. If it's only 2 people, like you keep suggesting, you won't have to worry about it.
That's exactly what I'm suggesting, is that why would 2 people coming to a bed and breakfast want to have a portable or stationary bar just for themselves?
Well,
Right? Unless you're talking about multiple people coming, where you need multiple people to have someone, as I think was just stated, serving at the bar.
Well,
Right?
I didn't
So
say
now we're talking about more
Just
of a
let me know when you're
commercial
done.
entity.
No, 6 people can decide to get together, Justin. We did in December, and there were 6 individual family members, groups, and they had one of those.
Did I rent a room from you?
No,
Were you operating it as a business?
no, this was
Okay, so
outside.
it's-
It was a B&B down in Indianapolis. And so, yes, 6 a son, his, bunch of his kids, the daughter, 2 of her kids, his mother-in-law. It was just 6 separate groups of people needed rooms. And we were all there for the same reason, which was the going away party for a friend of ours.
Okay.
And they had a gas thingy outside where you could sit, and they had a bar and all that stuff. It cost a small fortune.
What's
but
the Indiana laws on bed and breakfast?
I have no idea.
So
I
we're not
don't
even
care.
comparing
No,
them?
but I'm saying,
Okay.
it was still a B&B.
I've been to a similar one in
6
Traverse.
people getting together.
And that's in Michigan, we have the same laws there.
Pardon?
It's just an outdoor area where the people who are renting the facility renting a room in the facility can use the area outside.
I would suggest to you that what Mr. Hale said actually is the answer, and that is, Mr. Justin Parker, is that why would someone put a bar there? I don't know. My wife takes care of her home, and it looks pretty nice to me. What you try to do, as I understand it, at a bed and breakfast, is you try to create these sort of inviting areas that someone says, oh, I'd like to stay there, and I'll go read a book in that library, or I'll go sit out there and have a drink, or I'll go look at this, or do whatever. And so this was an attempt, and you may find it an ineffective attempt, and you could be right. But it's an attempt to make an inviting space that is part of the bed and breakfast experience, which you said you've been to a lot of bed and breakfasts, so I'm guessing you've seen other sort of inviting spaces, and maybe this doesn't qualify. But that's merely what it is. It's an architect's rendition of trying to make an inviting space that would make someone want to stay at the bed and breakfast.
Ms. LeVar, would a space like that, where people can gather, maybe they'll have some sherry or port or whatever they're gonna do, that doesn't disqualify the establishment as a bed and breakfast, does it, in any way?
No, because I argue someone could also do that in their own backyard,
That's,
in the R1 district.
yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking at it, so.
No, I
okay.
don't think, my concern wasn't that, my concern was if we're saying today here that it's just an open area, there's no roof on it, it's not going to be used for anything but just it's a concrete pad, we're gonna put some furniture on it. But then we say, yes, that's good, you can proceed with that, and then you build it out to be a bar and everything else in it. I guess if the intended use isn't matching, I guess is what I don't know if that's clear. I'm looking at pictures drawing here, I see on the site plan that, you can just see it's just the open concrete.
Yes, this is a new structure.
But then this is now considered another structure that isn't built out yet, that will be constructed.
I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I just.
So you're correct, it's not intended to be built out, and if there was some permanent structure other than a temporary bar, or maybe Mr. Parker's suggestion is it shouldn't be a temporary bar, maybe he's right. But whatever it is, it's to make an inviting space, a place where people can sit and congregate, have a sip of port or sherry, or whatever somebody likes to drink, and relax, and that's what it's designed for. We're not suggesting that it's going to be some permanent structure. Now, could it be that 12 months in, that seems like a great idea, we should have an outdoor bar with plumbing, or we should have a grill with a prep area, and we should make it, out of grill or out of stone or something. Well, then we'll have to come back and get a permit for that, because that's not being approved.
Yeah, but now it is no longer meeting the requirements, because now you're building it for this business, this bed and breakfast, which is one of the requirements, that it can't be built. Correct. It can't be specifically built for this business. It has to operate in the footprint of what's there right now.
Well, I don't know if really building an outdoor kitchen, if you're correct about that, you could be, but then we can't do that. In other words, he can only operate within what the...
That's what I'm saying. You just said that in 12 months, it might be a great idea to build this pavilion. But you can't build this pavilion if this is approved, because now this is how it sits, is how it has to stay, unless we're making improvements to it. But we're not gonna be able to put additions on this, because now we're no longer the bed and breakfast inside the footprint of an existing home.
That's not what Karen said.
Right?
That's not what Karen said. Karen said this is a normal activity which anybody could do in a residential area.
I'm not
Yeah,
talking
but if
about
you go
the, I'm
back to
not
the
talking about
first
the
standard.
activity, I'm talking about a structure,
first standard.
adding a structure.
I can put a pad in my backyard and a bar and all of that crap if I want to. I just have to get the municipal
And
approvals.
it's
It
in
doesn't
here
become
that it
before the
doesn't-
planning commission. This is a
Correct.
normal activity in people's
For a
backyards.
residence, correct.
For a residence.
residence.
And therefore, it would not come before us. It would only be it would only be governed by the municipal physical, meaning plumbing, electric, codes that Mike otherwise superintends.
Well, it depends. It depends if this was to get approved in the conditions that the planning commission places on it, if any future plans for any outdoor space would be a deviation from whatever was originally approved, it could come back before planning commission, depending on what,
Okay.
if any conditions are in place, if this gets approved.
Okay. We still have to go through the 8 standards.
Yes. Any more comments before we go through the review standards? And then we'll vote. Okay, no comments. So I'll read these standards one at a time, and we will vote whether we agree or disagree. First standard, the proposed special land use shall be of such location, size, and character that it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the surrounding neighborhood and/or vicinity and applicable regulations of the zoning district in which it is to be located. Everyone agree, or raise your hand if you agree.
Agreed.
If you disagree.
Is this
So-
agreed?
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 who agree. All right, number 2.
Then take your nays.
Pardon?
Take your nays.
Take your nays. There might be
That's
abstentions
well,
here.
okay. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Number 2, the proposed use shall be of a nature that will make vehicular and pedestrian traffic no more hazardous than is normal for the district involved, taking into consideration vehicular turning movements in relation to routes of traffic flow, proximity, and relationship to intersections, adequacy of site distances, location, and access of off-street parking, and provisions for pedestrian traffic with particular attention to minimizing child vehicle, interfacing. Okay, all that agree? Raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 agree with that. If you're opposed, raise your hand. 3 are opposed. We have 9 people. Okay, number 3, the proposed use shall be designed as to location, size, intensity, site layout, and periods of operation of any such proposed use to eliminate any possible nuisance emanating therefrom which might be noxious to occupants of other nearby permitted uses, whether by reason of dust, noise, fumes, vibrations, smoke, or lights. All that agree, raise your hand, please. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Is that right?
No.
6, right? I can't count. It was 6 that said yes. Is that correct? Did I count right, or
The 3 no.
3 no's? Okay, 1, 2, 3 no's. Okay. What number am I on now?
You're on number 4.
Okay. The proposed use shall be such that the proposed location and height of buildings or structures and location, nature of, and height of walls, fences, and landscaping will not interfere with or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land and buildings or unreasonably affect their value. All agree, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 7. Okay, that's 7, and all opposed?
No, it's 6.
Why is it 6? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I
6
can't
and
count,
3.
I'm sorry, I apologize. So, so,
There's actually, yeah, it's
Cindy does not vote.
2,
no, she doesn't go.
6,
9.
6 and 3.
Yeah.
Did I did 5, didn't I?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on 5. Okay. I'm losing it. The proposed use shall, number 5, the proposed use shall relate harmoniously with the physical and economic aspects of adjacent land uses as regards prevailing shopping habits, convenience of access by prospective patrons, continuity of development, and need for particular services and facilities in specific areas of the village. I'll agree with that. Raise your hand, 1, 2, 3. 6, that's what I was doing. Okay, 6 in favor, all opposed, 3 opposed. Number 6, the proposed use is necessary for the public convenience at the proposed location. All agree? You don't agree? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a question about this for you when we get to the end. So let's redo that, please. How many are in favor of that? How many agree with that? Number 6.
Read it again, Jim.
All right. The proposed use is necessary for public convenience at the proposed location. Who agrees? How many agree with that? 1, 2,
3, 4, 5.
5, okay. 5 agree, and those who are opposed, raise your hand, please.
Oh, sorry. 4.
Okay. All right, number 7, the proposed use is so designed, located, planned, and to be operated that the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. All agree? Raise your hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cindy, all opposed? Okay, 3, Cindy. Okay. And finally, number 8, the proposed use shall not be detrimental or injurious to the neighborhood within which it is to be located, nor shall such use operate as a detriment to future land uses permitted within the zoning district, and it shall be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. All agree with that? 1, 2, okay. How many is that? 5. All opposed? Okay, you got 4 opposed, Cindy. Okay, so We went through the review, so now at this point, we vote on whether to grant the special land use or not.
I'll make a motion to deny special land use based on the criteria that, as number one was presented, the rooms utilized for lodging purposes was not met. We do not have plans that distinguish only 10 rooms, maximum of 10, and that they were not constructed for the sole purpose of lodging, and that we've never, and then number 6, adequate lavatories, bathroom facilities, and kitchen facilities for lodging rooms shall be provided as per required, has not been provided.
Okay. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. The motion before us is to deny the special land use. So all who agree?
This is a roll call.
Why is it a roll call?
It should be, Jim.
You may request it, but it's not.
Then I request a roll call.
All right, fine.
Hey,
Okay.
Stegner?
I'm opposed to that motion.
Bill Parker?
No.
Hall? No. Minton?
Yes.
Webb?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hale?
Yes.
Grandstaff?
Yes.
You're opposed to it.
What?
The motion was to deny it.
Oh, no.
You might ask Mr. Grandstaff again. He did not understand the motion.
Mr. Grandstaff, are you denying that motion?
Yes.
Are you for that motion or against it?
No, I am not for that motion.
You're opposed to it? So that would be no.
And I'm also no. Or I'm a yes.
You're a yes.
Yes.
Maybe I do have to get the hearing. I don't know.
And Mr. Webb, was Mr. Webb
He
for it
was
or
yes.
against it?
Carl, yes.
He said yes.
Mr. Webb, you were for it?
You were voting to deny.
Yes.
Huh?
You were voting to deny.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the final vote?
So the motion to deny carries, correct?
Correct, 5-4.
Four no's.
So special land use is denied at this time, so.
Due to the said reasons.
Pardon?
Due to the reasons as stated.
What was the reason stated? I'm sorry.
He listed 3.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead and restate it.
It was in my motion.
Yes, yeah.
As stated.
Did you get it all, Cindy?
I'm gonna watch the video and just do it in that, but I will.
Okay, well, all right, well, special land use is denied is the bottom line. All right, so we move on to
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
item 3, which is Secretary Fowler. You want to continue on?
I fought for you. Put up a little battle.
Yes, I would accept that nomination.
Okay. So,
Thank you, Secretary.
I think, all right.
Right?
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Update number 4, flagpole ordinance.
So, you guys were not here last month. I'm just gonna jump in if that's okay, Jim, just to clarify. Council shot this back to planning, wanting to see a change in the industrial district footage, and changed it up to 50 foot, which then we didn't know they required maximum size of a flag. So we left that on Karen, and we're seeing it as 150 square feet. So I think, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, we just got the motion to send this back to council for approval
Yeah.
with the change of the industrial footage and flag size.
I'll make a motion to send this back to the council for approval.
And I'll second.
Okay, motion before us is to send the flagpole ordinance back to council for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, okay. Next item is fence workshop with Mr. Bomarito.
This is the highlight of the meeting. I did. That's why.
Everyone has a copy of what's here now.
Yes, sir.
There was some items here crossed out and privacy fence.
The cross-outs were items that the planning commission had discussed to strike, but nothing was ever actually formally amended, because we knew we had to revisit it because there were more issues. So we figured if we're gonna amend it, we might as well do all the amendments at once.
Basically, I think it's for the privacy fences, we've been having a survey done before you can put a privacy fence up. And we've been doing it, and a lot of people have had, paid to have it done.
Yeah, just so everyone out there in TV
land.
web land,
In the audience.
clear it out quickly.
Okay, Mike Bomarito, building inspector for the village. What I'm, would maybe recommend is not on a brand-new privacy fence of 6 foot, because already had several people do it, it's been in the ordinance. I would say if somebody had an existing one that's been there for years, that had to repair one or take it down and put it up again, maybe at that point, I would see where maybe we wouldn't require a survey. But to put one up brand new out of the gate, being they've been doing it, they should probably leave that alone then. Now, a 48-inch one that's only 4 foot in height is where you wouldn't have to get a survey.
Can I ask you why? Why can I put up a 48 or a
That's-
4 foot or 2 foot without a survey? Because we're fighting over boundaries.
Yep.
But I need one for a 6 foot.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be required for all?
You know,
Or
that,
not?
I'm the wrong guy to ask, because the reason I'm even here is to see what everybody agrees with so I can do my enforcement. I have no opinion on it. The only thing is, we've been doing it for privacy fences. You're right. What would be the difference between privacy or a 4 foot? Do they want to put everybody that ever puts a fence up anywhere, have to start getting boundary surveys? It gets quite expensive just to put a fence up.
It does. I mean, most people get a mortgage survey.
But it doesn't count.
I've had very few ever come in where they had a mortgage survey to their property at all. They
Yeah,
can't
I
show
would-
me the
I would
pins.
argue that if you don't currently have a fence, I would argue that 90% of the village probably has a fence of some type. I don't see why a survey is a bad thing to have.
I mean,
It's pretty expensive, Justin.
It is.
I would say if
It
you're-
is, but, I mean,
I'd say if you're replacing the fences,
yeah,
Mr. Bomarito stated.
then no.
And you have agreement with your neighbor that it's on the line.
Yeah, I would say that the letter should come from the neighbors in agreement.
For an
because if-
existing fence.
Right. If there's, for an existing fence, if everybody's in agreement and that fence is in disrepair, and they want to just take it down and rebuild it in that identical footprint, if not adding on any more footage or moving it over here or there, if they're going to move it or not put it back in that footprint, I think if we're going to have boundary survey, they should be subject to it then. But in the exact location, you're in agreement, it's been there for years, but it's in disrepair.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, for new.
But for new fences that's coming in right out of the gate, I know they want to have either a mortgage survey they could show or expose the pins or give me something. And most of the new houses already have surveys already done.
Yeah, so
Because
if you
we
don't-
see the four corners.
But I guess we don't require, and I've seen in a lot of communities, a little backstory, I used to install and sell fencing all over southeastern Michigan. Most communities, if you're putting up a 6-foot fence, you have to have a sign off from your neighbors.
Sure, that's a privacy fence, so.
Yeah, anything 6 foot. You have to have the approval, not just the plot plan or the survey. Because, I mean, that's something they're gonna have to look at.
Yeah, it's
Not all the communities do that,
not
Justin.
where I
I-
worked.
Yeah.
I know that in Washington Township, the fence ordinance did not require a neighbor's permission for privacy. However, they might, and I don't know if it's changed with the good side, the finished side would have to go towards the neighbor. We actually had that language here at one time.
Yeah.
And then we actually had the language where you had a permission letter from your neighbor to put up a privacy fence. And then they got rid of that language and started with the boundary survey.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, my personal opinion is if someone's putting up a fence that I'm gonna have to look at, regardless if the good side's facing in or out, I don't wanna say I should have some say in how they do it or what they're putting up, but if they're doing it at all, I mean, if it's not something I'm gonna wanna look at in my backyard for the next 20, 30 years.
So just devil's advocate to that, I mean, I have little kids, and I don't want people staring at my kids sometimes.
I can respect that 100%.
And that's my reaning. So it's like, I live on a corner, I have a kid that can do all kinds of crazy stuff when she's flying through the air, and people will stop and watch her, and it drives me nuts.
I
So like,
respect that
I paid for a
100%.
survey and I plan to put the privacy fence up.
Yeah.
But it's like,
You're talking more along the street.
I'm gonna go, I mean, it's already on the side between my neighbor and I, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I just don't wanna have to
Because then
ask
if
my
we're gonna-
neighbor what I can do with my property.
If we're gonna make them install the good side facing the neighbor, what
Or-
if then that neighbor, well, I want a different style fence in my yard? Then they're
That's in
stuck,
here.
right?
That's in here.
Is it? I missed that.
They can butt right up to the
Yeah,
fence.
you can butt up fences here.
When a
You can
fence
have
is
double
inside
fencing?
your
You can.
property,
I've seen it plenty of places here.
It's
If
in
you
here,
come-
you just have to be close enough that you don't
if
have
you
to
come in
create
3 feet
a
from
I
your
must have
property
missed that.
line and put
Well-
the fence up, does your neighbor still have a right to say anything about it?
You come in? No. If you're not, you gotta come in off the property line, right?
No,
No,
you
they
go
want it right on the
property
line.
Well-
They're on the
I must
property
have
line
missed
now,
that.
correct?
They want us on the line.
Yes, the way it's showing, when I started, if I read it correctly, if you're gonna have double fences, it's up to the building official to come and look to see that it's in the, it's in the proper location, and they want them butted to each other so you could keep grass and stuff maintained. They don't want 6 inches between them.
Right.
Because then you got nothing but problems there, and I've seen that, and where there's been fences put in, and somebody puts one, a double fence behind it, and it becomes no way to maintain it.
I think you just hit it on the head, though. If we're gonna allow double fencing, you said you got 6 inches, or even less, you're gonna get nuisance trees, weeds growing in there, butting each other. If I got a 4x4 and a 4x4, that's
Right.
more than 6 inches. But that fence structure is a butting. So that's a double fence, and I must have missed that.
It's in there.
I'd be fully against.
Page 4J, and it's up to Mike to
I,
enforce that it can't be bigger to have grass growing directly.
yeah,
It
and the
says
only
difficult
way-
to maintain.
and that's gonna be hard, because if, like Justin pointed out, if you have a 4x4, and then I put a chain link next to it, and the people don't like the chain link, so they'll put a privacy fence up against it. On the privacy side, it's no problem. You cut right down to the bottom of your dog ears, It's on that other side, on the chain link side, they'll have a tougher time, trying to shoot their weed whacker under that fence.
And what if someone wants to put up a 6x6, so it's stronger?
They
There's nothing
could.
saying they can't put up a
There's nothing
6x6 or
saying
an
you
8x8.
cannot. And the other thing is, I've seen them in several communities where I'll see a chain link fence in the yard, and all of a sudden, right butted up, they'll put a privacy fence there,
There's
and,
one right by me that's that way in the village.
Yeah, I dislike
But again,
that.
this is up to the building official to come out and say, you can't maintain that, you can't do that. And that's.
You
in
know-
here.
So we can almost argue that any double fence, if anyone can explain a situation where a double fence in between can be maintained properly without spraying just weed killer or everything killer, which then kills someone else's grass potentially, there's no way to do it.
Right? I mean, I don't disagree, but it's already in the ordinance.
Yeah.
so if you wanna change
We're
it,
talking about changing it.
No, I understand, yeah.
We're-
if that's what the workshop's for. If
Yeah.
we can
I
discuss
don't like
it.
double fencing.
So I have a double fence with my neighbor. They put the privacy fence up towards me, but that had to be done because of some situations that happened between our neighbors at the time.
Okay.
And I'm perfectly fine with the double fencing. I can maintain in between that. I have a chain link and he has a privacy fence. So,
I wanna recommend one thing, though, I'd like it to, instead of just building, the building official only, I'd like to have one or two people, like another one person with me, where I don't, not the only, when it comes to, just for that particular
Because
ordinance.
that comes down to almost preference. There's nothing.
Yeah, because I don't want to be the one to say it's right. I'd like to get a panel of three. It could be the building inspector, it could be,
What about the blight inspector too, because he'll have to deal with the weeds.
we could have officer that does the code enforcement,
enforcement.
be number two, and then
Someone
maybe
from planning.
from PC member, I'd love to have a PC member, three people. And then if two of us say, I don't see a problem here, but somebody else does, would,
I did it.
I elect.
at least you're getting a 2 to 3. If, say, I like it, yeah, I don't have a problem, say you did and the other one doesn't, we're gonna have to respect each other's and just say, that's the way I feel, and,
Well, yeah, I think it could be we could change it to the building official, the code enforcement, and a member of the planning commission.
Yeah.
Because not someone, I mean, you could say Brian Mint, but just a member of the planning commission.
I'd like to, obviously, get Karen's input on forming something like that, and then also legal's input on just forming a committee for fencing. I'd like to see what their input would be on that before we go ahead with it, but I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, these are just suggestions.
Yeah, no, I like it.
I think it's gonna be allowed when we check with legal counsel, because I know again, it's another city, but in Washington Township for accessory structures, there was what they called an accessory structure committee. So let's just say you had a limit of 1,000 square foot. They had a clause in there where you can do 25% more with the accessory structure committee. It was me, the building official, it was Dana from P&Z there, planning, and it was the township supervisor, the three of us. The time I was there was before, Sam was in office with Dan O'Leary. And if it'd be now, it'd be Dave, Dana, and Sam. And that's an accessory review committee. And what would happen is, there's so many situations where there was no impact on anybody to give that 25% more. And I'm saying, though, a committee is allowed, from what I'm thinking, we can run that by Mark to see. But I think that's the best way, instead of
I think it should just be.
putting it all on one, because then what happens, it leaves me to, well, Bomarito said it's okay,
Yeah.
Then I have 10, at least that way, it,
Right.
Well, I can agree with putting a planning commission member in. I think it'd be better if it would, for
Absolutely.
handling it administratively, if it was all in-house people in the building that are employees.
absolutely.
So like, building official, planning and zoning coordinator, and then the ordinance official,
Yes.
rather than a planning commission member, because we don't work for the
And
village.
that would be Officer Solier's the
Appointed.
ordinance right now.
That
so-
way, it's 3 employees of the village,
Yes.
and they're, should be there within a reasonable amount of time. We only report once a month.
And, because it's just like you mentioned, what happened, Justin, if somebody did put a big 6x6 in? Or decide to stay 3 inches away? Now you got blight, I don't care how you cut it in there, so if we could see that it's not gonna cause a situation, and the planning commission decides they wanna allow double fences, something you can vote on, then we can go from there.
I say drop the 6x6, you put up what you want on your side, I'll put up what I want on my side, and let's move on.
But it's, I guess, did we take maybe a vote of what everyone thinks on that panel, to see if you all agree with the double fences? I don't know.
I mean, we need a vote or a motion, but
A motion or-
show of hands, I don't think it needs to be official.
No,
Who-
it doesn't
who-
have to
who
be
is in
official.
support of
This is a
double fence?
workshop, and
Support of it.
Yeah, in support of a double fence.
My issue is that it could become an impasse between two neighbors, like, I don't want my chain link fence removed, but I want a privacy fence, and now your fence not being able to be removed is now hindering my property.
Right.
That's the only reason I understand a double fence.
Yeah.
Like in Brian's situation. It wasn't him, it was prior to him, but still, you're letting your neighbor control your property, and I'm against that.
Yeah.
and that's why it's not a bad idea to have it. I mean, it stops a lot of
Then,
neighbor
then could we
disputes.
put some wording that in the event of a double fence, there is proper distance between the fence to be maintained, and we need to define that clearance as whatever a walkable path is to weed whip it, or whatever that may be.
Well, and if they can't eliminate the space.
Which you're never gonna be able to eliminate the space. You're at least, if it's a privacy
The one by
fence-
me, it's right on it.
Yeah, I mean,
It is
mine.
right on it.
Mine's fine.
So the good side's facing
This
you,
side faces me, I got the chain link on it, and I can weed whip right under to get it.
so the space is eliminated.
There's
Ones
some
that I-
instances where it's gonna work.
The ones I've
Okay, I
seen.
can respect that.
The ones that I have seen that's been a problem, and I've gone out on complaints, are ones that were this far apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually seen where each person put a privacy fence in one in Washington.
Yeah.
It was that far apart, and all kind of stuff grew up in there, and it was a neighbor dispute, you know, and,
Yeah.
yeah, and it became civil, but then it was a blight in there. So if you're gonna do a distance between them, I'd say that distance, then again, property rights, like
Yeah, then
you
you're
said, are
telling-
sacred.
I look-
What are you gonna do?
I think back to a situation when I rented a house in Farmington Hills years and years ago. We had double privacy fences, and the neighbor didn't maintain his very well, and he had a gap in there, and his little dog got in between and stuck. And the fire department, which I didn't go on the run at the time, came out, and they took down the fence in my yard to get this dog out. And this guy refused to, I mean, I was renting, so it didn't matter, but refused to pay to have it fixed. Because my dog was stuck in your fence. I'm like,
We're stuck in your fence.
yeah, so I mean, there was a big enough gap for him to get in there and get stuck past the next 4x4s, and I was like, made no sense.
And that fence was probably in some right of disrepair, and,
Yeah, his was.
yeah, it was, again, if fence is in disrepair, and somebody comes and brings in a complaint, ordinance enforcement would go out there and, you know, when it becomes a blight issue, then you would have to, you know, fix the slats on it.
So for the double fencing, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yep.
The only thing you would like is if the word building official is changed to fence committee.
Yes.
All right, we knocked one out. What's next?
Is everyone in favor of that?
I'm not opposed to it, no.
Is there anyone opposed? Ooh, that's real good.
That one thing in the thing. All right.
What else you got, Mike?
I did have a question, Mike, for you on K, privacy screening. Could you define that? Like, so someone plants arborvitaes, right, along a property line with, you know, coming in the 3.5 feet or whatever it was stated, and they put it on a property line, and then that grows over 6 feet tall or encroaches within that distance, how is that maintained?
I think this is just talking about fences off the property line, like 2 panels to cover up your patio, right? This isn't talking about trees.
Which one is, I'm trying to
Like
get.
privacy screening.
Page 5.
Page 5.
Page 5. Okay.
I thought that was referring, I see where it says deck gazebo, but then doesn't it talk about,
Yeah, it says erected.
Okay, patios, decks, gazebos, pergolas, no such screen shall be located.
of the interior lot lines?
3.5 feet to the side.
So I think it's just talking about like a fence off the line, but like cover up a hot tub or something.
3.5
like that.
feet to the side or rear lot line on interior lots. So that 3.5 feet from a rear lot line, because screening, arborvitaes are in some sense considered fencing, right? Or screening.
I think the reason for that is they're saying to a rear side yard lot line, like you're saying, which they don't grow over. That's, I guess that's intent. They figure at 3.5 foot off. If they grow 3.5 feet wide, or start going 5 or 6 foot, then they're encroaching, but I don't know
And then
why.
it also says 6 foot.
Just
Yeah.
to circle out my argument for this.
Yep.
This whole thing is underneath fence, so it doesn't apply to trees,
Or,
shrubbery or landscaping at all. It's only for fencing. Because it's underneath the subhead for fence, or the main head of fence. So you're talking privacy screening, which would be a fence off the line, something you physically build.
Be these permitted fence types.
Well,
Right.
it's defined in that.
It's defined as fencing only, so it's a privacy screen with a fence erected. So
Yeah.
it's not limiting landscaping.
At the beginning under definition.
Yeah, it's-
Justin?
The only,
Look around,
thank you. Under definitions fence, any constructed barrier of any material or combination of materials erected to enclose or screen an area of land. Materials.
I don't think you can call trees that.
I
Can
think,
you?
I think it is defined that way And I don't, Mike, could you clarify?
I'll be honest with you, and maybe Karen can help us somewhat with that. I'll be honest, I'm not sure, because trees, I know there's language in there where they say if you're using trees and shrubs, they're only supposed to be a certain height within that 20 or in front yard, so you don't block vision. And I think that, to me, is more important when you're doing the 20/20 clear vision. So trees and shrubs maintained are supposed to stay below 3.5 foot, so you don't hit a kid on a bike. Let's face it, you grow them up 6 feet and there's a whole screen all the way to the corner where we have a lot of them in this village. You back out of a driveway, somebody's gonna get hurt. So I think that should be limited to the 20/20 vision, the 20/20 clear vision that we're trying to maintain.
I mean, isn't it already?
No.
Well,
I'm saying for
there
trees and
is a
shrubs,
section in there.
Isn't it clear view like on everything? Isn't that just saying?
That's what I want to get to, because that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we,
Not even put it underneath fencing, just in general. You can't block the clear view.
there was a section in here where it did address that.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a distance from sidewalks, there's no fences, walls, retaining walls, hedges, bushes, trees, shrubs. Planting shall be erected, planned and maintained, permitted within 1 foot of the inner edge of the sidewalk. We know that already, but I want to get to there was one where we had to maintain,
number
here it
2.
is. Number 2,
Yep. Under
and
G.
on page number 4 is where it says, they crossed out obscuring, but it really should, then they want just no fence, except those established and maintained by the village, county, state, or federal government shall be located within a triangle formed by the intersection of any road rights of way, easements, and/or access drives or pedestrian walk points, 20-foot distance from point of their intersection. No, then it says no obscuring structure or landscape greater than 2 foot in height shall be erected in that triangle. I like all of that there, the way it is. There's one thing I just noticed here, though, that was,
And it specifies landscaping.
there was one
That's
here, though,
covered.
that, and I have to find, L on page 5. Fences around swimming pools shall be constructed pursuant to the Michigan Building Code. The building code now references you to the International Pool and Spa Code 2015 is what we're under right now. They haven't adopted the 23 or the 18 yet. So building code, and it was actually in Appendix G one time in the residential code for pools, and they had a whole section. What the state did is they kicked that right out of the residential code, and they have a international pool and spa code.
So, but the
IPSC.
Michigan code says to reference the international.
The international-
Anytime that changes and we change the wording to international, then we gotta change it back to Michigan to meet Michigan standards.
No, it's
If we
'cause-
leave it at Michigan, it's always, and that references international, we're fine.
Well, on that particular code, it stays international. Michigan adopted the ISPSC.
Currently, but they adopt every year, every 3 years.
Well,
when it's
it
rewritten.
depends the next time they adopt it, and I think we're set up to where as they change that, ISP, say they adopted 2023 this year, who knows? The
Yeah.
state is so, then that would automatically be the next one that we would.
It would unless they don't adopt it. And then they, just like with
Well,
electrical
then-
code or any
right.
other code, Michigan goes through and picks out what they don't want.
Not on the International Pools Code, they took it.
Currently, they don't.
Yeah.
But they could.
We need another
And if
andor.
and if they do in the future, say 2023, they kick it back into, residential code with an appendix in there that we'd go by, then we'd reference that, yeah.
Do you want
But-
to add another and/or?
And/or, go ahead.
Well, we could, that's what I'm saying, we could, whatever he wants it to reference specifically, or
Well, we have to right now.
applicable code is needed.
Whatever's adopted, right now, it's under the ISPSC, and we have to do
I agree
that.
with that. I know exactly what
I know what, I mean, I
Right,
understand what you're
whatever
saying.
adopts in the future, then we would have to, we have no choice.
residential electrical code.
Yeah,
But
just like
it's-
the
Are we doing
electrical
our fault
code.
or are we not? Right?
Yes, whatever
if
the
we-
state adopts is the way we have to enforce as
What
they
the
adopt
state
it.
adopts, exactly.
Yes.
So if we leave it as what the state has, there is no question
They're
on
gonna
what
point
we've
you to the
adopted
proper
or
code.
haven't adopted.
That's
Look at
good.
Michigan
state
and Michigan,
reference.
they go
Because
Say
that
we leave it.
way, like you
Leave it.
said,
So I think
who
we're
knows
good.
in 2020,
8.
Eight, they
20,
might
34.
finally get to the 23 because the state's so far behind on adopting
We just
codes
got
right
there.
now. You
So
know,
lovely.
and they might go to that, they might put it back in the residential code, they might put an appendix in there that
Yeah.
you follow all the rules by.
Right, but this covers both, commercial and residential.
Absolutely,
in the
it's,
current
it,
language. It
the
has both.
ISPSC book covers public pools, private pools, anything to do with, aquatic vessel, they called it. Now they say anything that holds water. I mean, they kept changing the language on the last, it's like drive you nuts trying to
Well, I'm just saying,
interpret that thing
L
sometimes.
points to both currently, so I mean,
Yes.
I think we can leave it.
Does. Because then, so you're saying the Michigan residential code, if you look up that building code, that.
The Michigan
that
building
points you to
code.
the
It,
international.
you have to use a
So, okay,
ISPSC,
that's- so
right?
we're covered by saying Michigan.
Yep.
Michigan code.
Building
Yep.
code, yes.
All right.
You can still, I guess use it that way because it
So
still
the-
kicks you over there.
Back to the no fence in the 20 by 20, so the obscuring, we're taking obscuring out.
Yep.
So on the corner of Prospect and 32 Mile Road, where a guy just redid his whole fencing,
Prospect, 32.
and he's got the 3.5 inches in between it. Now that technically would be illegal,
Non-conforming.
non-conforming. and he'd have
He went to
have-
ZBA, I think, and got a variance for that. They did not go.
No, because that's still in there right now.
It is
Right,
right now,
right.
so he's still
So
good.
he was able to do it with the larger slabs.
The way it's, yeah, but no total obscuring with shrubs where you can't see through it. You could see through
That's a
it.
different thing for the code
Yeah.
enforcement.
That's a whole nother.
Right, no.
But he wouldn't be able to do that in the future.
If, once you adopt it this way and we come to an agreement, you're right, no one would be able to do that without going to ZBA.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah, but I would argue, even though it still said obscuring, if you're sitting there and he's got a 3-inch, right, and it talks about, right, and there doesn't talk about the 90-degree angle, if you're sitting there and you can't look through this 3-inch and then the opposing 3-inch and have a clear view of what's going on, then it's obscuring.
Well, you can, that's what the 3.5 inches, I mean, I'm not arguing the fence, I'm just saying that fence can't be, that won't be allowed in the future.
That fence is no worse than the tree to the left of it.
well, it
actually
should
not
really
bad.
be no fences in that 2020 at all. It should, you're supposed to top 20
no
each
fence.
way. And
Which
that's
is
the
what
way
this does
Macomb
now,
Township does it and
Getting rid of the word
almost
obscuring
every
out of
other
it.
community. From the, and if there's no sidewalk, they'll go to the street. If there's a sidewalk, you go from the sidewalk 20 each direction and you cut a corner on them. They have it in Washington, adopted it that way too. And I know Macomb Township, because my daughter had to put hers on, she's on a corner lot, and they come with the side load driveway, and they had to put the 2020 in on it.
Don't look at me.
It's, yeah, it's pretty common to see that now, just because codes, let's face it, they're reactive, not proactive, and there's been injuries for, and that's the reason why they asked for it.
It's for safety. You can't
Yeah.
argue with that.
What other concerns do you have, Mike?
Okay, my next one, while we're here, is when you have a privacy fence coming down a side yard, the way we're allowing them, and the guy has a survey and everything.
Interior side?
On the interior side, yes. And you're coming right down the side yard, and my house is located, say, 30-foot back. The house next door is 40-foot back. Now, when I'm coming down between those 2 yards, I'm coming past the front yard of a house. And I know I've had several of them in Washington, because some of the subs, they vary the way they curve. When they bring that privacy fence down, when they come to the front of the house, they have to stop at the shortest one. Even though my yard, say, comes out here, I can't come all the way here. That neighbor, I'm coming past his front yard.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. You have to stop it back there.
What if I come in 3 feet and then put the fence up?
You can't over there. As a matter of fact, that's even with the 4-foot fence, because they don't allow front yard fences in some
But if I'm
communities.
3 foot within my property and I come up to the front of mine that's 30 feet off the road, and his is back farther,
You gotta stop at his front yard. You can't go into a front yard with the privacy
it's the
fence.
two front yards
And you're
between
still
the two.
getting into a front yard. And that needs to be, illustration on a page, what I'd like to see put in there, and
any fence.
And that's something I think that we should look at too, because what happens, the guy's house, the person will have the house here, and let's say a house is here on a corner lot, all of a sudden, another situation is, what happens when you got a backyard that butts up to the house next door, you're on a corner, house next door's front yard stops, now you can do a privacy, you're gonna put a privacy all the way across the whole front yard then, even though you're doing your backyard. Now, that's gonna be a tough
But
situation.
now, again, you're telling someone what they can and can't do with their property.
Yeah.
Well, that's what,
I'm sorry, your house sits back farther, mine
Uh-huh.
sits out front, so now you're saying, that, let's say it's just 10 foot different in the front setback.
Well, in the front
Now you got the
setback-
10 foot plus the length of my house,
but you're going in the front yard though.
not his, I'm going in my front yard.
No, you're going past my front yard, and that's
No,
where,
and
that
his
has
maybe,
a,
not mine.
see, yeah, I
But you could
disagree
do
on that
4
one
foot.
100%, because
when
you're
it
still
gets
going
to
in
that-
front
Yeah,
yard
Still, no,
for
I
somebody.
can't privatize my backyard if I sit closer to the road than my neighbor.
I'm trying to think of an instance in the village where that would even happen. I can think of maybe one on East Washington.
Right next door here, there's the houses that sit back farther than the ones in front of it.
Yeah,
So you're closing off the guy next door's front yard with the fence
What
he's
about a house
getting.
that's in front and the other one's behind?
But it's not.
The whole
That's-
backyard's
that-
in someone's front yard.
yeah.
Well, that's the one that's the one I'm getting to next, and that's, I'm glad you brought that up. If you're on a corner, and the house next door to you going down that
I'm
next
not even
street,
talking corner, I'm talking interior houses.
Well,
where a house
interior
sits in front
houses.
And a house sits behind.
I think-
Bill knows the property.
I think it's
that's
just-
separate.
I think it's the same kind of thing with restricting corner lots here, is we're a significantly older community than Washington, the part being built now. And they're, the self-created issues of curving roads, we barely have any of those. These, I mean, I think we're trying to put a ordinance in place for new structure building that we don't have here. I mean, we're all over the place as far as what houses are built where and the ages and what was allowed. So, like my Washington example, the house that burned down, they leveled it, the new guy comes in, he's gotta back that house up. He doesn't have a
You
choice.
gotta have setbacks.
So then the house next door has a privacy fence that comes off the front of that house and then dives straight back. That wouldn't be allowed to happen if they wanted to rebuild it now.
No.
It would- If this went through.
I'm talking, Bill,
What?
we're in a meeting, guys.
Go ahead.
And I'm sorry,
I mean,
this shouldn't be happening.
You know, you're running it, so go with it.
The property, I think you used to own here, right, that houses backed up to each other, right? You had one in front, one in back?
Yeah.
Right, so if the front guy wanted to put a privacy fence up in his backyard, it's.
It's all in one,
Oh, it's one
Well, it's
address?
not his backyard, Justin, I'm sorry, it's not the backyard, it would be the side yard, is he's coming down his side yard to keep going along the side, because we're allowing him the side yards.
House or the backyard of a corner lot.
Now,
butts
that's
up to the
different.
side of another.
Yes.
Or potentially the front.
That's
My
different.
backyard is his front yard.
Yes,
right?
that's a different
And then that
scenario I'm
creates a
talking about
different
right
issue
now, okay.
completely.
What do you want to do with that scenario?
Nothing. I wanna do nothing about it.
Fence committee is gonna-
See, that's what I
think we just need sign offs from neighbors. Everything. Woo, let's move on.
I'm just trying to find out how to do my
And
job.
There's so many
so-
different what ifs and scenarios that I can see in the village.
I don't want somebody's driveway to alter what I can do with my property line, I don't want any of that, but I mean, I'm just one person. I just don't see why it's my issue if my neighbor runs their driveway right on the property line. I want to run the fence on the property line, and that's not my fault. That you put your driveway right on the line.
That's
It's
it,
not
you
my
could,
fault.
you could run that, you could ride in a 4-foot or a 6-foot, all the way down that whole side yard, right down the driveway. Actually, you go right to the street with the 4-foot, because we allow them in front yards.
Sure do.
With 3-inch spacing.
Right on
You
Main
can do
Street.
that. We're not looking to change that at all. Like you said, the property rights, your property boundaries are sacred.
So you're talking 6-foot privacy fence. you don't
6
want-
foot is the one I'm talking.
don't-
If you got a 6-foot, do you want to be able to still continue past the front? I mean, that's up to,
Yeah.
I don't think we're
I
gonna
think-
see
I think
many
you should
like
be able
that.
to. If it's my house and I want to put a fence in that comes up to the front of my house, a privacy fence, and cut across to the front corner of my house, regardless of what the neighbor's house does, that's my fence.
But that's still in a
I'm saying
front yard
mine-
setback.
Of
'cause
the neighbor,
Yes,
not of you.
Not mine.
but
the
that,
neighbors.
That's the neighbor's front yard setback, not
Right.
mine. I'm not blocking his front yard off, I'm blocking my
Yours.
backyard off.
Your side and back.
your side, you're coming along your side. It's not your backyard, that's your side yard.
So unfortunately for him, it may seem
And if that's the way,
issue.
'Cause the house
I'm
is
just
on your
telling you,
street,
if we run into that scenario, I need to know how to enforce it. And if that's the way it's written there, I don't have a problem, because somebody says, what the hell did you let them bring that all the way down? That's past my, it's right here.
Yeah.
There's
Now,
ordinance
if
allows
it
it.
That's how it should be.
comes up too far and obscures the vision
That's
of
different.
2020, then that.
Right, that's automatic trumps anything, we know
That's a
that.
safety issue.
Right.
So if you're all in agreement with that, I'm okay with it. The other one is, and I'm not saying no, please, listen to me carefully. You get to a backyard, and that's my whole backyard, but my backyard is going across somebody else's whole side yard. When you get to that corner, there's one right up there right now on Harriet and Dickinson. That last new house that Prospect
Yep.
Investments built, they want to put a privacy fence across their whole backyard. The thing is, that house next door,
Their side yard.
that's that front yard even. It goes all the way down past the side yard. It takes all the way to the front yard now with the privacy fence on that one.
Yes, it does.
I mean, that could go back to when the site plan was approved for the positioning of the house, right? I mean, it is what it is.
But that's
You
that
can't tell
guy's,
them you
now
can't
we're
put up
putting a
fence in his
privacy
backyard.
a fence in a whole front yard now.
That's what I'm saying is,
But again, that's
But
their
again, it's his backyard.
That's their backyard, they're allowed to put it in their backyard, and
Right.
it's not encroaching on their front yard.
Agreed.
Because their front yard ends where their backyard line is,
Now
so.
that-
No, no,
Corner lot.
not on that one.
That one's a corner
I'd have to let you
that
go over
property
there.
rights end where my speaker.
Brian, you gotta go look at it, you'll see what I'm talking about. And I'm okay, if that's what the planning commission says, that we're gonna allow those, because I run into that, I gotta know how to enforce it, because that person's telling me, that's my whole front yard, you're putting a privacy fence in a front yard that we don't allow, but it's the other guy's backyard.
Correct.
And that one can go right out.
So you could argue it either way.
Sidewalk, right?
Yeah,
With
go
the-
right to the
you gotta come in a
sidewalk
foot or so off
with the
sidewalk,
privacy
right?
fence.
Well, it's not really an argument, because you're on the guy's, you're in his backyard property. You're not
Yeah, and you're in my
have to-
front yard if I'm the guy that
Well,
owns
But
that
I'm not
front
in your
yard.
front
But
yard,
it's-
I'm in the back. I'm
You're in your
my
back,
backyard.
but you're in my front yard along that property, blocking my view right down that
Yeah.
street.
So that
What view-
car,
what
'cause that
view, though?
driveway's
There's
there.
no viewing rights in
I mean, it's
Romeo.
Well,
parcels.
no, it's not on the lake,
Parcels, the
Right,
But-
applications.
Viewing rights, so.
but you're
It's not a
putting,
safety issue.
but it's his front
Not the whole
yard.
lake.
It's not
It's
his
a-
front yard, it's his
Well, it's
backyard
his,
where the
but
fence is
It's,
located.
no, it's,
But the
that's,
application states which address it's for, and those are the limitations of that property.
and if that's the way
It's
you
not
wanna
talking
put
about
it in
the
there, that's fine.
It's unfortunate, but that's the scenario we're in
So
because
the
of
guy,
some of these
it's
parcels.
his front yard, he should put his application in first and put up a 4-foot.
Yeah,
And then what about the double fence? The guy decides he wants his privacy, now he wants to put the double one in. I'm telling you, you wouldn't believe what I run into, okay?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know, I think you're fine, I think he's fine with it, because that's his, you can say it's his front yard, he can say it's his front yard, but it's not, because as soon as you step over that property line, you are now in his backyard, you are now in my backyard.
Agreed.
Fortunately for you, I can put a fence up in my backyard. It's an unfortunate scenario for the way the land is situated and the plots are situated, but, I mean,
I could tell you, we had one in Washington, they couldn't do it.
and if we need the the fence committee to go out with you, we'll have the fence committee.
Yeah.
Well, we exist, this village existed significantly before the Subdivision Control Act did.
Yeah.
Yes,
And so,
I don't have a problem, whatever way you tell me, but I need to know how to do it, how to issue them, because I guarantee when I issue that permit, the person, would you let them put that privacy all the way across my front yard? That's my front yard.
well, the fence committee said.
Karen, I don't want to put you in the spot, but what's your input on that? What does other communities do when they run into that? When you got my whole rear yard is somebody else next door, it's their whole side yard going all the way to their front yard, like on a corner situation. This house is here on this street, my whole backyard goes along his whole side of the house, so he could technically put a privacy fence in all the way to the sidewalk, and that's my whole front yard with one.
To be honest, I'd have to take a look at what other folks are doing. Unfortunately, you know, a lot of the communities I also work for, they got a lot of land, these lots are really big. I can look into maybe more what, communities that have a lot of unique smaller lots. And, older communities and see what they have. And see if,
Hamtramck.
there might be a creative solution that we could be able to come up with.
Dearborn Heights.
What happens in a situation if they said we didn't permit fences in front yards at all? And that's that guy's backyard, but you can't have it in the front yard? How would you
Well, it's
just say
that
for?
guy's backyard, it's not, it's.
But it's my front yard,
It's
again,
not
you-
your front
Well,
yard,
but
it's the backyard, it's my
the
parcel.
It's the parcel as applied,
And that-
not
and-
the
So
adjoining
fences have to
parcels.
be installed 6 inches within the property line, and we eliminate double fencing. If it's 6 inches in, it's on your property. There is no front or argument of whose property it is.
Well, we're gonna allow the double fencing, so.
What's that?
Who's gonna maintain that 6 inches?
I'm gonna weed whack it. The long one over top my fence.
That's the problem.
I mean,
And that's why I need,
I get, for me, the situation of, corner lot where someone's rear yard and side yard are basically on.
Front
someone's
yard, too.
yard. Depending on the situation, if someone needed to, driveway purposes and stuff like that, if that fence is existing, and depending on how small that person's lot is, I mean, again, it puts a burden on the neighbor whose front yard that is, but that's, I think, where a big conflict comes in, at least for that situation.
you gotta watch the legalities. If you say you can't have it in a front yard, you get attorneys can argue stuff any way they want. So I don't know. I'm just saying whatever I'm told to do that's in that ordinance is the way I'll issue my permits. But again, I need to know, and then we could do that. That's something that's gotta be cut and dry, not a fence committee. You know what I mean? The fence committee, I would say I guess if you wanna put language in there where there's these type of areas like this that come about, the fence committee shall make the deviation then.
or it goes to zoning. Goes to
ZBA.
Well,
Goes to
that's-
the ZBA for,
There's a vehicle for it.
yeah.
But no, we've talked about that before because you're $1,000, so
Yep.
that's.
a lot.
So basically, if that guy in that rear yard wants to go all the way down somebody else's front yard and we say no, they can go to ZBA and get that variance?
Yeah, I mean, if they're gonna argue,
Yeah.
that's my backyard,
Yeah,
I'm
so-
putting the fence up, that's a ZBA issue.
You're asking for relief from an ordinance.
Just I need to have that ordinance has to be written to where, and I'd like to see an illustration of that scenario, and as this is prohibited, or, they can do 4 foot, absolutely. If they want to do privacy, they'd have to go to ZBA, and they say, well, if you don't like it, go to ZBA, and then. But they can do
So
here.
in this situation, the one that we're talking about over here, 6 foot up to this person's front yard, 4 foot down to the sidewalk, turn the corner, and now that's still my backyard, so now I can step it back up to 6 foot? So I'm gonna have one section of 4 foot, step back up to 6 foot going along.
The way it's
the other
written right
sidewalk.
now, we didn't even get to that yet, where you're coming down, are we gonna do that's what Andrew is, he's the perfect example.
I am, thank
Are
you.
we gonna have the corner lots as you're coming down them? Are we gonna follow, right now, it's not written to where you follow the same setbacks for a front yard, for a
I
privacy
think we
fence?
discussed this at a previous meeting where
Did.
on corner lots, you could bring it up to the front of your house at 6 foot, and then it would have to taper then.
Michigan law states that every home has one front,
Yeah,
period.
So,
yeah. We've already argued that.
Ordinances is how you work in changes to that.
and your
calling
front
the side
is
a front.
on that street, so that whole side that you're coming down,
Fremont.
Fremont there, as you're coming down it, right now, the way it's written, you could put a privacy fence there all the way down it, 1 foot in, because we don't have it written where you follow the 25-foot back where you
Right.
come off your house.
Right.
And that's the way it is right now.
But I have to observe clear view. I have to observe the clear view.
Until you get to that, by that driveway where you're coming in, now you gotta do the 20/20, absolutely.
Yep.
And I don't have a problem if that's the way they wanna keep it, so.
Mike, would you be willing to work with Karen and write proposed changes and everything, so we had like all your thoughts written down for a future meeting, so we could maybe
Pretty much-
diagrams for
Pretty
certain
much,
things?
we already.
If we make illustrations and I draft up language, could we revisit this at the August meeting?
Yes. And
I think that would be.
honestly, this
Rather
is.
than Kicking things back and forth.
Right, so people can look at it and say that's.
For sure,
that's-
absolutely.
This is what you're.
I'm the one that gets
It's gonna get that convoluted,
I love it,
absolutely.
Mike.
You're gonna
I
need pictures.
get to face the
You get
residents.
to deal with the residents, and we just get to let
Pictures, are you lying?
it go.
Yes.
Hey, skip to step
Yes.
3.
Right now? Yeah. Yeah.
Motion before us is to adjourn this meeting. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you.
Perfect. No, Cindy's got a question though, and this is,